Alright, launching.
When I first started paramotoring, I refused, absolutely, adamantly refused, to refer to the activity as a sport. Even looking across the aisle at the paragliding purists, I didn't know that there were competitions, and I thought it nothing more than a mere pastime. So one of the things that helped change my mind over the course of time about that was the coverage of the xALPS. If you're a paragliding pilot, you certainly know about the xALPS, and you certainly use the name Kriegel-Mauer as a household term. But a lot of paramotor pilots just don't even know that these level competitions exist. So if you're a paramotor pilot, go to YouTube and search for xALPS and watch one of the entire season's coverages. And you'll start to see that there's a lot of sporting that can be woven into flying these fabric wings. This past week, a group of us went up to Dave Hanning's flying camp in Dunlap, Tennessee, and got in some free flying, although it was a horrible weather weekend. The weather was just blown out 30-mile-an-hour winds for 3 straight days of our planned time there, or I'd have a lot more footage to share with you. When you consider the trust that Dave and his instructor staff put in us as paramotor pilots coming up there, it's quite remarkable that they took us on as training students and that they gave us the latitude to do what we did, which was basically use their facility and join in with their full-time paying students as if we were just part of the fray. Imagine a paragliding pilot coming up to you at a flying event, or a fly-in maybe, even worse, where there's lots and lots of people, and saying, hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to strap on your motor and give it a try. Most of us would scoff and say, nah, not so fast. We got to do a hang test. We got to do some power management drills. We got to have you power taxi the wing. We got to have you talk about motor safety. Well, that's kind of what happens when a paramotor pilot goes to one of these ridge sites. The instructors really need to, or the custodians, rather than calling them instructors, let's call them custodians. The custodians of the property, the ones who have a vested interest in making sure nobody gets hurt there, at least have the responsibility. They need to make sure you can get into your harness, have all the gear ready, be ready to fly, get off the hill, and navigate, get down to the LZ, and land without getting hurt. Now, we can start talking about how this becomes a sport. So what metric do you want to use? Highest altitude attained? Longest duration flight? Longest distance flight? The ability to navigate over pre-chosen points? Are you competing with others, or are you competing against yourself? Because when we start talking about betterment, competing against yourself is probably the most rapid way to advance. Last weekend I had a 19-minute flight. This weekend I'm trying to get in a 20-minute flight. In our modern age, we tend to view hunting as barbaric. But there are certain types of elusive game that are so challenging to hunt that it's considered to be sport. Take, for example, horseback-mounted fox hunting in 19th century England. Do you know that a lot of the terminology that fighter pilots use to communicate their proximity to the enemy is derived from fox hunting? It requires a huge cooperative effort. Dogs that are trained, specially bred for the purpose. Horses that are trained, specially trained for the purpose. Riders that spend inordinate hours on horseback. Trumpeters, and all the pomp and circumstance. So I find it is with finding thermals. I also learned this past week that there's a big pecking order within the paragliding community. Ridge soaring pilots aren't quite as cool as thermaling pilots are. And as I roll out onto final here, my admission that I am probably the 6th, maybe the 5th worst thermaling pilot in all of paragliding. Hope you enjoyed the ride down. Hope to see you on the mountain soon.